الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Islamic Center at New York University podcast, coming to you straight from the heart of New York City. We're building an amazing Muslim community here at ICNYU where everyone is welcomed and respected no matter where you're from or where you're at. This is the place to be. So open your ears and your heart and come along with us on another life-changing journey. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the master of the day of judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to His magnificence, His omnipotence, His might, His glory, to His being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the master of the day of judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is His servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in His path until the last day. Within the Sunni tradition of Islam, there are numerous books of hadith that give us accounts of the actions, the sayings, and the tacit approval of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. That if he did something, he said to do something, or he saw you do something, he didn't say don't do that. A most robust genre of literature that we have as a primary source of law within our religion that gives us inclusive of, but also beyond, understandings of practice and ritual, and even more so, ideals, ethics, values, just how to conduct ourselves and how to be. Within a course of study, many people will get exposed to 6 major canonical texts, the Sahih Sitta, as they are called. And many of us are familiar with 2 of them, the Sahih collections of Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, may Allah's mercy be upon them both. We have also that of Imam Tirmidhi and Nisa'i, Ibn Majah, and then the 6th, which is the Sunan of Abu Dawood. And in this entire compilation of the Sunan of Abu Dawood, the author, Abu Dawood himself, rahimahullah, he says that of this text, if there are 4 hadith, that if one was to have insight and intelligence on those, it would suffice them. And last week we looked at 2 of those hadith, the first of which he says of making up a 4th of what this deen is about, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, that indeed actions are by their intentions. And then the second, he says, min husn al-Islam al-marri, that from the beauty of one's deen, tarakuhu ma la ya'nihi, that he leaves behind what does not concern him, meaning that you mind your business. And today we wanted to continue at looking at the remaining 2 hadith, each one arguably that Imam Abu Dawood is saying, rahimahullah, if you were to have insight into these, if you were to have a deep reflection upon them, the 4 of them by themselves make the foundation. They teach you everything you need to know about this religion. The 3rd hadith that he notes within these 4, he says, لا يؤمن أحدكم, this hadith, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه, that not any one of you will have iman, belief, until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. May Allah make us people of sound iman, sound faith. The idea that this now can encompass a quarter of the hadith, literature in meaning, a quarter of what this tradition is about. Abu Dawood, he indicates this hadith amongst the four, distinct from the other three that he mentions, that quite often other scholars like Imam Bukhari would say everything in this deen is attributed to three hadith. Abu Dawood adds this one as a fourth, that you love for your brother what you love for yourself. When we start to think about what this hadith means, primarily we want to not think that there's anything without meaning in Allah's plan and anything without meaning by virtue of Allah's plan in what the Messenger ﷺ has to say. Iman in and of itself is an integral condition for your entrance into Jannah. May Allah make us all people of paradise. And if you want to have an iman that's complete, not an iman that exists, but one that is complete, you gotta love people. I was in Texas giving a khutbah shortly after I'd returned back from Myanmar. May Allah make things easy for our brothers and sisters facing genocide there, the Rohingya. And as I was telling people about what it was like to be on the ground amongst individuals who exist in millions as refugees, I cited this hadith with the addition of commentary from Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, whose 40 hadith collection Muslims study across ideological perspectives. And Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, when he does commentary on this hadith, he says the word brother is not in reference to your brother in faith, but your brother in humanity. That you just love people. And there was a man that came up to me afterwards, not to stereotype him, but he looked like somebody who went to Jumu'ah for his whole life. And we sat down and we had a conversation, and he says to me, I have never heard anybody say that as Muslims, we're just supposed to love people. And he wasn't trying to be antagonistic, he was trying to understand. And we talked for about 20, 30 minutes going back and forth on this conversation. And he would say, well, what about this verse? And I would say, well, what does the Quran say here? And trying to just think deeply about this person who was in his 50s, 60s, if he even started to go to Jumu'ah when he was 20 years of age, exposed to 30 minutes a week of some type of content rooted in religious discussion, over the course of a year, 26 hours. And every decade, 260. Nobody ever told him that you're supposed to love people as a Muslim? And I want you to think about it. For within yourself, when you get exposed to deen and people start to teach you about this religion and what they give to you of it, because our Prophet ﷺ, he says, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِيُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ, that I was sent to perfect ethical conduct. The mode in which one gauges the state of their heart is not based off of how it is that they perform and posture prayers in terms of precision of practice. But you want to know the state of your heart, you see how you treat people. You want to know what state your heart is, look at the decisions you make and the decisions you don't make. Look at how it is that you talk to those that you could fully get away with doing nothing for. Those who have no consideration in being able to uphold the rights that you have over them because they come from a different power dynamic. When you walk down the street or you come into the place of prayer, do you give salams to everybody or just the people that share race and ethnicity with you? When you sit in your home and you eat a meal, or you try to determine for yourself who you will pray behind and who you will not pray behind, who is your children allowed to interact with and who are your children not interacting with, who do you give your zakat to, and do you even give your zakat at all? Love is the basis of all of it. And you can't say that in this religion, love is not an integral value, because it's not somebody wretched like me. Your prophet is saying you're not going to have complete iman until you love people. And you start to think deeply, how can you love somebody that you don't spend time with? How can you love somebody when the only time you interact with them is with stereotypes of them? How can you love somebody if you just sit by yourself and you only take care of you? لا يؤمن أحدكم, not any one of you, the Prophet says, is going to have iman. Hatta, until. That means that that's something that's there. Until. Yuhibba, you love. لأخيه, for your brother. Ma yuhibbu, what you love for yourself. Do you believe that somebody, just because they share humanity with you, is somebody that is deserving of your mahabbah? If I was to even ask you, what does the word love mean? What would you say? Because how can you aspire towards harnessing something that has ambiguity to it? The way you know 2 + 2 = 4 concretely and conceptually, you can even understand that it equals 4. The way that I can say to you a word like microphone, I can say to you a word like chair, we can say a word like Zoom or live stream, and collectively have a common definition that doesn't have ambiguity. Everybody will know what we're talking about. When I say to you a word like mercy, what does it mean? When I say forgiveness, integrity, honesty, what does it mean? When I say compassion, justice, what does it mean? When I say love, what does it mean? The Bedouin comes to the Prophet ﷺ, and when the Bedouins come to speak to the Prophet, it's different from the way the other companions speak to the Prophet of God. You have those who are from the Sahaba who live within the confines and proximity of the Prophet, and they would say, Ya Rasulullah, Ya Nabi Allah. There's a certain deference and etiquette that's there. There's a lot of hadith where Bedouin come to the Prophet ﷺ and they ask questions and they say, Oh Muhammad, teach me something. They're not outside of the fold of the community. They're coming from a different place, and the Prophet still talks to them. The Bedouin man comes and asks the Prophet ﷺ in terms of the hour, in terms of what's coming next. The Prophet ﷺ asks him, what is it that you have prepared for it? And he says, I don't really pray so much. I don't really do too much of the things that we're supposed to do. But I love Allah and His Messenger. And your Prophet ﷺ says to him, Al-maru ma'a man ahab, that a person is going to be with the ones that they love. May Allah make us from amongst those who are with the beloved of Allah in the highest level of Jannah in the world beyond this one. If you don't start thinking about what you love and who you love and why you love it, it doesn't mean that you don't. And if you're spending time with people who outwardly express something but inwardly they do not embody the sunnah in any which way, they're confining deen to a place that becomes suffocating, weaponizing it in a way that pushes people out as opposed to bringing them in. They're not giving you an insight about iman that is tangible and robust and relevant, that isn't just about theory or abstract doctrine that says to you, what does it mean, a throne of God or a hand of God? Here the messenger of God is saying, your iman necessitates loving people. And in numerous hadith, in numerous verses of the Quran, whenever Allah talks about those that He loves amongst creation, He's talking about humans. How can you say this religion doesn't have something to do with love? How can you be in a place where you practice it for years, decades, give it to generations that come after, those who look up to you, that have responsibility from you to give them the religion on a whole, not just pieces of it, but all aspects of it. And you engage on a day of reflection and contemplation. Do I love people that are different from me? Because there's a lot of people in this world who don't. There's a lot of people who don't want to be connected to people that come from a different class. There's a lot of people who don't want to be connected to people that come from a different race or culture. There's a lot of people who, they don't love other people. They justify and validate the mistreatment of others, intellectualizing people's struggles. And the question is not meant to be rhetorical, but you got to ask it in this world. Otherwise, you're going to be asked about it in the world beyond this one. Where is love in all of this? And what's getting in the way is what your heart is attached to. Is This is my son in a Hawaiian shirt, mashallah. Do you tell young people that you love them? You can ask my son, you can ask my daughter. I tell them multiple times a day that I love them, because I do love them. If you don't tell the kids in your life you love them, you're not honoring the rights that they have over you. And you can make justifications and validations about culture and this and that. It's wrong. If the expressions are more in negatives, you highlight what is irritating and frustrating. You give a reason for a socialization that yields a perspective that says that it's just me on my own and I just got to take care of myself. This is a modern day shirk, egocentricity, that it's me and everything revolves around me. Not that Allah is at the center, I'm at the center. You guys just think about it. What does it look like, healthy love? And sometimes you can understand what something is by understanding what it's not. And if you have obstacles built up within your heart because of people that did not express it to you, that did not show it to you, you have to make a determination that ensures that it doesn't continue generationally. The heart's function is just to love. And just because you love something doesn't mean it's good for you. The people that you spend time with, just because you think that it makes sense to spend time with them, al-maru ma'a man ahab. Do you want to be with people in the world beyond this one where they will be, who justified mistreating people based off of what? Do you want to be in a place where your eternity is spent in company of who? And the Bedouin who's telling the Prophet, I don't do so much in terms of these prayers, but I love Allah and I love Allah's messenger. The Prophet is saying, Al-maru ma'a man ahab, that a person is one with the one that they love. So you're going to be with the ones that you love. Why would you want to be with the people who are racist? Stop loving them. Why would you want to be with the ones who colonized your people? Stop seeking validation from them. Why would you want to be with the one who rise themselves and elevate themselves by denigrating others? Your Prophet had companions who struggled with things. If the people that you interact with look for every reason as to why they can say somebody else is a bad Muslim, why would you want to love those people in the way that you would want to be with them in the world beyond this one? And your Prophet loves people so much that he's constantly thinking of others. Selflessness is an integral part to love. Sacrifice is an integral part to love. You have to get up and know why you do what you do and who it is that you do it for. And when you can find your heart attached to people, a community, individuals. If I have to sit and make a determination if I'm going to give in to my nafs and engage in haram, am I going to move forward in doing something that gives me simple satisfaction? I think of the blessing of a child that I love, that Allah has given to me. I think of my wife, their mother, who I'm so in love with. I think about a community that I have a deep love and attachment to, that I would never put myself in a place where the dignity of my dua gets soiled because I'm thinking of myself before those that I love. If I enjoy the safety that I have, the sanctuary that I have, the health insurance that I have, the comfort that I have, my love for people is that I want them to have this also. If I truly understand it as a ni'mah, a gift, a blessing, the idea is not for me to get mine and get mine alone. Even after the Prophet leaves from this world, when everybody's thinking about themselves, he's thinking about others. On the day of judgment, when we stand in front of Allah Azza wa Jal, the individuals who stand on that day will all be saying, Nafsi, Nafsi, myself, myself. The Prophet ﷺ, he tells Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha that it's going to be a day of chaos. People will be standing with nothing on, ankle deep, knee deep, up to their chins in their own perspiration. He says, Ya Rasulullah, how can it be? Won't the men and women look at one another? And he says, Ya Aisha, shaddu min adhalik, it'll be more severe than that. They'll go to the likes of Adam alayhi salam seeking intercession, and Adam alayhi salam will say, Allah is angrier today than he has ever been, and he is more angry today than he will ever be. I have to think for myself, how can I intercede for you? Nuh alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, each and every individual saying, Nafsi, Nafsi, myself, myself. Because there's only one owner of that day, one master of that day, one possessor of that day. That is Allah Azza wa Jal Himself. You and I won't even have clothes to wear. And in the midst of all of it, one voice is going to be saying, Ummati, Ummati, my Ummah, my Ummah. And that is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, still thinking about others before he thinks of himself. Your Fajr is not your Fajr. Your Fajr is for all of us. How you dress is not for you. How you dress impacts all of us. The food that you eat, that's not just about you and your stomach. It impacts all of us. The mode in which you engage in the permissible and impermissible, your commitment to your identity. This is not a religion that is about me just thinking about myself. When you center Allah, then you assume also that we exist in a sphere of interdependence. Other parts to this hadith that are important to understand. The Prophet ﷺ is not saying that the basis of your relationship should be jealousy, animosity, greed, envy, anger, pain. It shouldn't be arrogance. It shouldn't be ignorance. But he's saying you should love each other. That's what your bond should be built off of. You should have mahabbah. And your iman necessitates it as your iman wants completion, or you want completion of your faith. Like so many things in this religion, you don't have to buy into it for it to be true. But at some point you have to sit and think to yourself, what does all of this mean? What keeps me from being there for others? Can we have everybody move in close, please? If you could fill up any of the carpet that's in front of you. For the sisters also, if you could fill in any gaps in front of you, behind you, we'd appreciate it. Still a lot of people that are going to be coming in. And the live stream rooms are also overflowing downstairs, so any room we can make, we'd appreciate it. I asked my daughter, do you think people are going to come to Jumu'ah today? And she said, yeah, they don't have anything better to do. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, yeah, they just want to, they have time to spare. I said, you're making me feel amazing. She's like, no. And then that was it. I said, yeah. Think of this hadith in reference to the other two hadith also, that Abu Dawood rahimahullah says, make up the four of them everything this deen is about. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Your actions are by intentions. If I do for you just because I love for you, it's very different than if I do for you because I want you to do something in return for me. But when there's love, I'm not doing so that you owe me something. I'm just doing because I want to do it. مِنْ حُسْنِ الْإِسْلَامِ الْمَرِّ تَرَكَهُ مَا لَا يَعْنِيهِ. That from the beauty of one's Islam is that they leave behind that which does not concern them. When I have love for you, it helps me understand what should concern me. I should be concerned whether there's food in your stomach or not. I should be concerned whether you have ability to be taken care of when you're sick. New York City is a lonely place, man. May Allah make it easy. You know how much it must be for so many of us? You sit in your home alone and nobody's helping you when you're ill. How can you have 1 million Muslims that call this city their home, and there's anybody that would ever feel alone? The fourth hadith that Abu Dawood mentions now as the base of everything that one would need from this compilation. And this fourth hadith is mentioned quite often as a third hadith by other scholars. Imam Bukhari, for example, mentions 3, and this is the third that he mentions. And this hadith that begins, al-halalu bayyin wal-haramu bayyin, that the halal is clear and the haram is clear. And that between these two things are doubtful matters. And he says, of these doubtful matters, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's not a lot of people who know about them. The admonition comes to then refrain from engaging within the doubtful realm. And he says that for those who would approach that which is doubtful, he gives the parable of a shepherd that grazes near the sanctuary of a king. Saying that the shepherd essentially is going to keep the livestock from getting towards that which is not their land to graze on. And the imagery that's evoked is the more you get close to it, you're going to transgress. And what the hadith says quite explicitly is that the kingdom, the sanctuary of Allah Azza wa Jal are the maharim, these limits, these boundaries that He set for us. And then the hadith, it ends and says, "Ala wa inna fil jasadi mudghatan idha salahat salaha al jasadu kullu wa idha fasadat fasada al jasadu kullu ala wa hiya al qalb." That indeed in your jasad there's a morsel of flesh. If it is good, the entire being is good. If it is not good, the entire being is not good. Indeed, it's your heart. Words have meanings in our religion. Something isn't haram just because you don't like it. Something is haram because it has definitive text and meaning that indicates that it is haram. The entire spectrum through which all actions can be engaged necessitates understanding at a foundational level what these words mean and what the implications are. Halal, principally, is something that is applicable to everything in matters that are mundane, other than if somebody can tell you why there's a basis that it's not permitted. So if you're going to tell me I can't eat something, or I can't listen to something, or I can't utilize something in a certain way, the default is that everything is permissible unless it is deemed to be impermissible in these categories. And then it's contrary in matters of worship. That if you want to tell me that something is the way we are supposed to worship, the default is that it is impermissible unless there's a reason to say that this is what is permitted. For everything that is deemed to be impermissible within the course of our day-to-day interactions with this world, there are literally tens of thousands of things that are rendered permissible. If you can't drink one thing, there are thousands of things you can drink. If you can't eat one thing, there are thousands of things that you can eat. The notion that is there, even within an Adamic narrative of creation, that Adam alayhi salam is created, and the Shajarat al-Khuld that Iblis entices him with is one tree that he's told to not engage in a sea of trees. You know how you know it's a sea of trees? That's why it's called Jannah. It's called Jannah because it's got the same root as jinn. That there's so many trees that when you're standing at the base of the forest looking up, you can't see anything because of how many trees they are. Or if you're above the forest looking down, there's nothing other than trees. Everything is hidden. Just don't eat from one. But there's so much more that you can take from. And this is the fundamental idea. The paradigm shift rooted in the heart that is the governing force in the body that the hadith concludes with. How you see things will tell you about yourself. And trying to think and understand, well, where does some of this come from? When something is haram, it's haram. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you don't fulfill a fard, that's haram. That's how the ahkam work. There's no intellectualizing of it. If something is permissible, it doesn't mean you have to do it. And quite often, the idea that it's simply permissible doesn't mean that it always makes sense to do. There has to be ethics that are understood. Is it most sensible in the situation that I'm in? Most people don't turn to haram because they're bad people. Most people turn to haram because there's an absence of community support and structures. A lot of people carry a lot of pain. They get numbed inside. And the same thing we said before, the Bedouin comes and I love Allah and His Messenger. The companion has a struggle with alcohol, drinking. And when he takes the had punishment, the Prophet speaks to the others who speak poorly of him for his drinking habits and says, don't say such things. He loves Allah and His Messenger. How are you helping somebody to get to a place where they still recognize that Shaitan's tactic is not the committing of the deed, but through the deed to get them to believe that they have no place in a relationship with God? And where and how do you not weaponize or utilize terminologies in ways that become overtly reductive and make no sense? The kind of things people have said to me are haram that have no bearing of actually being haram, just because they don't know what the word means. Just because it's not your culture doesn't mean that it's not something that's permissible. Just because it's different from the way you did it doesn't mean that that's something that's a problem. Mahabba has to be a base to this. Compassion has to be something that's there. People are struggling, and there are too many who see the world only in black and white and want to fit everything in black and white. And if you're going to say something is gray, you have to understand that it actually has to be gray. And a lot of things that you might think are gray, they are not gray. And if there are different opinions on things, then there are different opinions on things. So if you don't want to listen to music, don't listen to music. But there's different opinions on the matter. If you're going to only eat meat slaughtered in a certain way, that's fine. There's other opinions that have different indications on it. You want to put your hands in a certain position and somebody else prays in a different position, it's a sign of spiritual immaturity that believes that you know every opinion on everything. And it is a sign of spiritual maturity that says that there must only be one categorically best way of doing it. There are 2 billion of us in the world right now, from every place you can imagine in existence. And we have lived in a 14-year tradition that goes until the end of time. You cannot fundamentally believe in a diverse creation from a creator that knows everything of his creation, that says the system would render us homogeneous in ways that make no sense. It's going to be different for different people. There's literal hadith where the Prophet has a companion come, "Can I kiss my wife while I'm fasting?" To him he says yes. "Can I kiss my wife while I'm fasting?" a second. To him he says no. Other Sahaba say, "How is this possible?" The answer is different. The question is the same. Because the 2 people come from different places and different walks of life. You can't learn your religion just from a website that claims that it can give you every definitive answer on every question. The beauty of the Sharia is that it has elements that are applicable to the individual. In the prism of all of this, you just got to try your best. On the other frame of the conversation, there are things that are haram in this religion. And there are so many more things that are permissible. Don't justify the pursuit of the haram. The consequence on a metaphysical level comes to the heart. The dark spot that comes now, that cloaks, begins to now impact vision and perspective. And you want to deepen an understanding of what haram is, because the consumption of swine, the drinking of alcohol, the committing of zina, these things are haram. But backbiting is haram, gossiping is haram, lying is haram, racism is haram, abuse in all of its forms is haram, domestic violence is haram. And if you want to know where your heart is, just think about this. What kind of God must somebody believe in that they think it's okay as a husband to raise their hand on their wife or as a father on their child? Your heart is going to evidence for you the state that it's in. And there's nothing that you have to think of, because the halal is clear and the haram is clear. And you want to play games, then just recognize you're going to stand in front of God one day. May Allah grant us all ease on that day. But at a base level, you start to negotiate within yourself. What does all of this mean? Am I suffocating people with religion? Most people turn away from religion because of religious people. Am I making excuses for things that I shouldn't make excuses for? You don't know how many breaths you have left to breathe in this world. Don't wait for tomorrow to engage in what you can, and stay away as best as you can from the things you struggle with. These 4 hadith, Abu Dawood rahimahullah, he says that they serve as the basis of all of it. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. You want a starting point? Why do you do what you do? Think about it before you get it done. مِنْ حُسْنِ الْإِسْلَامِ الْمَرِّ تَرَكَهُ مَا لَا يَعْنِيهِ. That from the beauty of one's Islam is that they leave behind that which does not concern them. Leave people alone. Mind your own business. The things that we stick our noses in make no sense. And the things that we are silent on make no sense. Be in somebody's life if they're struggling. Support them. Ask them how they are with genuineness. That shouldn't be awkward. What should be awkward is when you go up to somebody and say, why don't you have a baby yet? How come you're not married? Mind your business. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. That not one from amongst you will believe until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. And then the 4th hadith, he says, Al-halal bayyin wal-haram bayyin. That the halal is clear and the haram is clear. And he ends with the hadith in its entirety, that your heart is what is meant to be sovereign over your body. So take care of your heart. Pay attention to it. Do the things that are going to allow for it to be in a state where it feels refreshed and empowered. Shift the perspective on ritual and practice. Think about what you believe in and how you even know what you believe in to begin with. Inshallah ta'ala, these 4 narrations will serve as a foundation for us in building a deeper relationship with our Creator and all of His creation. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسول. This deen of ours, it gives us something to practice. These pillars, these rituals, we have something to do. It gives us theology, it gives us faith and articles therein. It gives us something to believe in. It talks to us about spirituality and akhlaq, good character. It gives us something to embody. And it tells us that this world is not simply what is it, but there is a world that is beyond this one. It's giving us something to get ready for. Don't use this deen as something that is just a sociological identity variable. Think on this day of Jumu'ah what you are actually a worshiper of. Think and envision what it would look like when you stand in front of Allah and your book is presented, not just to Allah, but to you, and you see what's written in there. And allow for yourself to think about the value of every moment that you're given in this world, with a deep understanding that it will inform where and how you will be in the world beyond this one. May Allah make us people of His Jannah. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuha alladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad fil awwalin wa fil akhirin. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallama ya arhamar rahimin. Allahumma innaka عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present herein and our loved ones ones, only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here, only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Increase us, Ya Allah, in all that is good. Increase us in courage, compassion, and confidence. Protect us from affliction, anxiety, and anguish. Remove from our hearts any feelings of bitterness, jealousy, animosity, or envy towards any of your creation. Grant us hearts that are filled with understanding and hope. Hearts that are drawn towards things of real goodness and beauty. Hearts that find themselves deep in your remembrance. For indeed in your remembrance do hearts find rest. Make us, Ya Allah, from amongst those who take direction and insight from the teachings and words of the best of creation, your beloved Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Allow for us to be from amongst those who fill our books with actions that are rooted in consciousness and awareness of your presence. And forgive us when we unknowingly or knowingly commit those deeds that hurt others and hurt ourselves in ways that we don't realize. Make us those, Ya Allah, who have a deep concern for those things that actually should be concerning us. A concern for our own welfare and wellness, not just of our bodies, but of our hearts, our minds, and our spirits. A concern for our families, our loved ones, our neighbors, all those who we share community with. A concern for those who the world has forgotten, the orphans, the widows, refugees, the incarcerated, those who have little or no health care. A concern for those that people make justifications for not being concerned of. Ya Allah, make us those whose Islam is beautiful by being concerned for the things which you would want us to be concerned for. And keep us, Ya Rabbi, from being concerned about those things that should have no concern for us. Those things that we should not be wasting our time focused upon. Help us, Ya Allah, to love for people what we love for ourselves. Make us those, Ya Rabbi, who strive to build true, deep, healthy love as the bond that we have with all of your creation. Help us to heal from any pain that we might have that makes it difficult for us to love others because we don't truly love ourselves in ways that we should be. Help us to see ourselves the way that you see us. Help us to see our goodness, the gifts that we possess, our beauty both inward and outward. Let us always be the reason that people feel loved in this world. And let not any one of us ever feel unloved. Make us from amongst those who honor the Sharia that you have gifted to us, Ya Allah, and to not play games with that which it is that you have given to us as a ni'mah, as a blessing. Help us to do what it is that we can to show appreciation for everything that you have gifted to us in the prism of permissibility. And make us those who have a deep desire and a strength to stay away from the haram as best as we can. Forgive us when we make religion suffocating for others. Help us to be those who watch over our hearts so that our hearts in turn watch over us. And let us remember always, Ya Rab, that no matter what it is that we do and where we go, that we can always turn back to you and seek your forgiveness. Make the best of our deeds the last of our deeds. And let not any one of us leave this world other than in a state that is pleasing to you. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وأقيم الصلاة.
We hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you're inspired by the work that we're doing at the IC and want to help keep it going, subscribe to our podcasts, follow us on social media, donate to help support us at ICNYU.org, and most importantly, keep us in your continued du'as. Until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.